Episode 2 King Dasharatha. In the beginning of creation, the first being to arise was Lord Brahma, the great progenitor of the universe. From Brahma was born the sage Marichi. Marichi's son was the revered Kashyapa. Kashyapa married several daughters of Daksha. Among them were Diti and Aditi. Through Aditi, he became the father of 12 radiant sons: Dhatru, Mitra, Aryama, Shukra, Varuna, Amsha, Bhaga, Vivaswantha, Pusha, Savitru, Twastru, and Vishnu. These 12 divine beings came to be known collectively as the Adityas. Among them was Vivaswantha, the sun god himself. His son was Manu. Because he was born of Vivaswantha, he was also called Vaivasvata Manu. In time, he became the sovereign ruler of the world, and the age over which he presided came to be known as the Vaivasvata Manvantara. Manu had a daughter named Ila, and he was also blessed with 10 sons. One among them was Ikshvaku, founder of a great royal lineage. From Ikshvaku descended many illustrious rulers who governed the kingdom of Koshala. Among these were Kukshi, Vikukshi, Pruthu, Trishanku, Bharata, Sagara, Dilipa, Bhagiratha, Kakutstha, Raghu, Ambarisha, Nabhaga, Yayati, and Aja, kings whose fame echoed through the ages. Koshala was a vast and prosperous realm spread across the fertile northern plains nourished by the sacred Ganga. Its capital city was Ayodhya, situated on the southern bank of the river Sarayu, a tributary of the Ganga. The city itself had been established by Emperor Manu. Ayodhya was magnificent in scale, stretching 12 yojanas in length and 3 yojanas in width. Its very name meant the unconquerable, a city that could not be subdued. Built upon level ground, Ayodhya rose in grandeur. Towering mansions of 7 stories adorned the cityscape. Broad avenues ran through its quarters, lined with beautiful gardens and shaded parks. There were centers of learning where the Vedas were studied with reverence, as well as schools devoted to music and dance. Playgrounds and arenas for sport added vitality to civic life. Commerce flourished within the city's orderly markets. Shops were carefully organized by trade. Weapons and military equipment were sold in designated quarters. Artisans displayed machines and tools used in daily living. Merchants offered goods of practical utility alongside gems and precious stones of dazzling brilliance. Thus stood Ayodhya, prosperous, cultured, and fortified, the proud heart of Koshala. Ayodhya was not only grand in appearance, but also remarkable in civic order. Fresh drinking water was abundant throughout the city. Ingenious underground drainage systems had been constructed to maintain cleanliness and hygiene. Careful planning and efficient administration ensured that the city remained pure, orderly, and pleasant to live in. It was during this era of prosperity that King Dasharatha ruled. the sovereign at the time when the events of Ramayana unfolded. He was the son of King Aja and Queen Indumati. Dasharatha was known for his unwavering truthfulness, his courage in battle, his devotion to righteousness, and his deep mastery of the Vedas and the Vedangas. His military strength was formidable. The royal army was organized into 4 divisions: mighty elephants, swift chariots, skilled cavalry mounted on horses, and disciplined infantry. The elephant corps included noble breeds such as the Bhadra, the Mandra, and the Mruga, many of them raised in the forests of the Vindhya and the Himalayan regions. Among them were elephants said to be of the same exalted lineage as the celestial Airavata and other famed heavenly elephants: Pundarika, Anjana, Vamana, Kumuda, Pushpadanta, Sarvabhauma, and Supratika. The cavalry was equally impressive, with powerful steeds brought from regions such as the Kamboja, Panayu, and the land of Sindhu. With such a well-equipped and disciplined force, Koshala had little to fear from external foes. Under Dasharatha's governance, the people lived in security and contentment. Prosperity prevailed and joy marked daily life. The king was assisted by 8 distinguished ministers: Drishti, Jayanta, Vijaya, Siddhartha, Arthasadhaka, Ashoka, Mantra, and Sumantra. Among them, Sumantra served as the chief minister. Each was wise, devoted, and steadfast in loyalty to the kingdom. Their primary concern was the welfare of the people, and they labored tirelessly day and night to uphold justice and prosperity. The royal court was also guided by eminent priests and sages, including Vasistha, Vamadeva, Suyagna, Jabali, Kashyapa, Gautama, Markandeya, Dirgayu, and Katyayana. Of these, Vasistha and Vamadeva held the foremost positions. They ensured that sacred rituals and sacrifices were performed at the proper times, maintaining harmony between the kingdom and the divine order. Through their prayers and rites, they sought timely rains, abundant harvests, and the continued moral integrity of the realm. They watched vigilantly to ensure that righteousness prevailed and that no one strayed from the path of virtue. Thus, under the vigilant care of wise ministers and learned priests, King Dasharatha's kingdom flourished in strength, prosperity, and dharma. King Dasharatha had 3 wives. On the southern bank of the Ganga, there was another kingdom, South Koshala. It was ruled by King Bhanumanta. His daughter, Kausalya Devi, was Dasharatha's first wife. The second was Sumitra Devi, the daughter of Suraraja, the king of Magadha. The third wife was Kaikeyi, the daughter of Ashwapati Raja, the king of Kekeya. They were worthy wives of the great king. So King Dasharatha, blessed with able ministers, sagacious priests, and worthy wives, ruled wisely and well. He shone like Devendra, the king of heavens. He made Koshala the home of happiness and prosperity. With all this, the king was still unhappy. for he had no children, and he was aging. Once Dasharatha desired to perform the Ashwamedha Yaga. He reasoned that the sacrifice would please the gods and he could pray to them to bless him with children. He consulted his priests and ministers. They were delighted. They said, "It is good to perform sacrifices, for that strengthens righteousness in the world. Your desire will be fulfilled, and you will also attain salvation." Then Sumantra said, "Your Highness, Sage Vibhandaka has a son, Rishyashrunga. He is a great rishi, a great ascetic. Once rains totally failed in the kingdom of Anga, and a terrible famine swept the land. The ministers advised the king, Romapada, to pray to Rishyashrunga to visit his land, and the king brought him to his capital. The moment Rishyashrunga stepped on the Anga soil, heavy rains blessed the kingdom, and it was all green again. The king gave his daughter Shanta in marriage to the sage and prevailed on him to stay in Anga. Your Highness, let Rishyashrunga officiate at the sacrifice you are contemplating. I advise you to go to Angadesha and fetch the revered sage." In due course, King Dasharatha journeyed to the kingdom of Anga to meet King Romapada. There, he explained his intention to perform a grand sacrifice and humbly requested the sage Rishyashrunga to preside over it. The sage consented willingly and, accompanied by his wife Shanta, traveled to Ayodhya. According to ancient custom, when a sovereign resolved to undertake the Ashwamedha sacrifice, a majestic horse bearing auspicious markings was released to wander freely across neighboring lands. A royal inscription accompanied the steed, declaring that a particular king was performing the Ashwamedha and that no one should obstruct the horse's passage. A contingent of warriors followed at a respectful distance to safeguard it. Wherever the horse roamed, the rulers of those territories had a choice. Most received it with honor, acknowledging the supremacy of the king conducting the sacrifice by offering tribute. However, should any ruler attempt to halt the horse's progress, battle would ensue. The accompanying army was bound to defeat the challenger and compel submission before allowing the horse to continue its journey. Only a monarch who could assert such undisputed sovereignty had the right to complete the Ashwamedha. Confident in his strength, Dasharatha released the sacred steed to roam as tradition demanded. Meanwhile, preparations began on a grand scale along the expansive northern bank of the river Sarayu. Skilled architects, engineers, painters, and master carpenters commenced the construction of the sacrificial complex. A vast ceremonial hall rose upon elevated ground, designed to accommodate immense gatherings. Thousands upon thousands could assemble to witness the sacred rites. In accordance with scriptural injunctions, a sacrificial altar was meticulously constructed, and the ritual stake was erected with precision. Every element followed the prescriptions laid down in the Shastras. To receive the multitudes expected from across the kingdom, extensive accommodations were built. Large residences were prepared for visiting kings from distant realms. Stables, storehouses, and communal dining halls took shape. The organizers even established spaces for performances, theaters, and halls for dance, along with marketplaces where goods could be displayed and traded. Wells were dug to ensure ample supply of drinking water, and all necessary facilities were arranged for the comfort of guests. In essence, an entire township emerged beside the sacred site, a temporary yet magnificent extension of Ayodhya, built to host one of the greatest royal sacrifices of the age. The performance of the Ashwamedha Yagna was regarded as an act of immense spiritual merit. It was not undertaken merely for royal glory, but for the welfare of all, for men and women, for every living creature, and even for the trees and plants that sustained life. The sacrifice symbolized harmony between ruler, people, nature, and the divine order. Because of this lofty purpose, participating in the ritual, even by offering assistance, was itself considered a sacred privilege. As news of King Dasharatha's intention spread across the land, sages who had long been immersed in austerities left their hermitages. From the snow-clad heights of the Himalayas, from the rugged ranges of Vindhyas and the Aravalis, and from distant forests where they practiced meditation and penance, rishis journeyed toward Ayodhya. Alongside them came countless citizens. Multitudes streamed into the capital, eager to witness and contribute to the grand undertaking. Many sovereigns too arrived in person. The king of Kekeya, Dasharatha's father-in-law, came with his retinue. King Janaka of Mithila traveled to Ayodhya, as did Dasharatha's friend, King Romapada of Anga. Rulers from Kashi, South Koshala, Magadha, Purvadesha, Dakshinadesha, Sindhu, Saurashtra, and numerous other realms made their way to the city to lend their presence and support. Soon, Ayodhya thronged with visitors from every direction. The streets were filled with processions, caravans, and assemblies of learned men and royal entourages. Yet, despite the vast influx of people, careful arrangements ensured that every guest was received with due honor. Suitable lodgings were provided, and hospitality was extended generously to all. Thus, the city stood vibrant and alive, prepared to witness one of the most sacred ceremonies of the age. For a full year, the sacred horse wandered across distant lands, and none dared restrain it. Unopposed and victorious, it returned to Ayodhya. With this auspicious sign, the great Ashwamedha sacrifice commenced upon the northern banks of the river Sarayu. The sage Rishyasringa presided as chief officiating priest. 4 distinguished ritual priests were appointed to fulfill the essential roles of Hotru, Adhvaryu, Udkatru, and Brahma, each performing their sacred duties according to the scriptural injunction. The ritual fires were kindled with solemnity, and offerings were presented to Agni, the fire god, with grandeur and devotion. Following the completion of the Ashwamedha rites, Rishyasringa guided King Dasharatha in performing another sacred ceremony, the Putra Kameshti Yagna, a ritual undertaken for the blessing of progeny. With his queens by his side, Dasharatha observed every rite with deep reverence. In the spirit of generosity, he gave away vast charities, countless cows, fertile lands, and abundant wealth were distributed among the needy and the learned. At the culmination of the ritual, clarified butter was offered into the consecrated flames. Suddenly, from the heart of the blazing fire, a radiant celestial being emerged. In his hands he bore a golden vessel. The assembly stood in awe. Dasharatha rose at once and bowed respectfully before the divine messenger. The luminous figure spoke in a resonant voice. O Dasharatha, the gods are pleased with your sacrifice. Take the sacred payasa and distribute it among your queens. Through it, your desire shall be fulfilled. With gratitude and humility, Dasharatha received the golden vessel. He divided the divine preparation into two vessels and gave one to Kausalya Devi and another to Kaikeyi. Kausalya Devi and Kaikeyi shared their portions with Sumitra Devi. In this way, Kausalya Devi and Kaikeyi get one portion each, whereas Sumitra Devi gets two portions. Three of them accepted the divine blessing with devotion and faith. When the sacrifice concluded successfully, joy spread throughout Ayodhya. The gathered kings, sages, and citizens offered their congratulations and gradually returned to their lands. Dasharatha's heart overflowed with hope and happiness. 1 year had passed. Then, on the 9th day of the bright fortnight of the month of Chaitra, in the afternoon, under the auspicious star Punarvasu, Queen Kausalya Devi gave birth to a son. The following day, under the star Pushya, Queen Kaikeyi bore a son. That very afternoon, beneath the star Ashlesha, Queen Sumitra gave birth to twin sons. Ayodhya rejoiced as never before. The air seemed alive with celebration. Music filled the streets, and people danced in delight. King Dasharatha's happiness knew no bounds. He ordered special worship in the temples and arranged for sweets to be distributed among the people, sharing his boundless joy with the entire kingdom. Sweets were distributed throughout the city in celebration. The king ordered that food, garments, and generous gifts of wealth be given freely to the poor. Ayodhya overflowed with festivity and gratitude. In due course, the royal infants were formally named. The son of Queen Kausalya Devi was named Rama. Kaikeyi's son received the name Bharata. The twin sons of Sumitra Devi were named Lakshmana and Shatrughna. The four princes were charming beyond measure. Their faces shone with vitality, and their smiles captivated all who beheld them. Nourished by their mother's loving care, they grew into sturdy and radiant children. Their playful speech echoed through the palace halls, filling every chamber with joy. Dasharatha and his queens delighted in watching their sons at play, and with each passing day, the boys seemed to grow even more enduring. As time advanced, the season of learning began. Games gradually gave way to study. The young princes turned their attention to their teachers, listening with deep concentration and respect. They mastered the Vedas and the Vedangas, studied the sacred sciences, and learned the histories of their people. Under expert guidance, they trained in the arts of warfare, becoming skilled archers and adept riders of elephants and horses. Courageous and sharp-minded, they embodied noble virtues in abundance. The bond among the brothers were unbreakable. Lakshmana, in particular, was inseparable from Rama. He shared his meals with him, played beside him, and rested near him. Nearly every moment of his day was spent in Rama's company. Rama, too, cherished Lakshmana deeply. In the same way, Bharata and Shatrughna were devoted to one another, rarely seen apart. Though paired in affection, all four brothers cared for each other with equal warmth. Among them, Rama drew universal admiration. He showed utmost respect toward elders and tender affection toward those younger than himself. Though exceptionally intelligent, he was free from pride. He never spoke harshly or lost control of his temper. Yet his patience did not make him weak. He firmly corrected wrongdoing when necessary. At the same time, if an offender admitted fault, Rama was generous in forgiveness. Thus, Rama stood as a model of righteousness and unwavering duty. As the son of King Dasharatha, he came to be known as Dasharathi, and because he descended from the illustrious house of Raghu, he was also called Raghava. Among the early ancestors of this royal line was Kakutstha, the grandson of Ikshvaku, a warrior of extraordinary prowess. In ancient times, a fierce conflict broke out between the Devas and the Asuras. The gods found themselves hard-pressed in battle and greatly distressed. During that period, Kakutstha ruled the earth. Seeking aid, Lord Indra himself approached the mighty king. He appealed to Kakutstha for assistance and declared, "I shall serve as your mount. Seated upon me, engage the enemy and secure victory for the gods." Accepting the divine request, Kakutstha entered the fray. Empowered by valor and righteousness, he triumphed over the forces of darkness and restored strength to the gods. Because Rama was born in this heroic lineage, he too bore the name Kakutstha, honoring that ancestral glory. Years passed, and the princes gradually crossed from childhood into the early bloom of youth. Observing their maturity and noble qualities, King Dasharatha began to reflect upon their future, particularly the question of marriage. It was at this juncture that a distinguished visitor arrived at the royal court, the great sage Vishwamitra.